Ever since his last girlfriend announced to everyone that Jeremiah's manhood was barely 5 inches, he was never the same. And ever since that day, every woman Jeremiah spent the night with left, always before sunrise. They always left after the first round. Except Evie. She stayed. She made coffee, she hummed in his kitchen, and he hated her for it. But before we dive into how a billionaire with trust issues found the one woman who refused to run, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. This story gets intense. Trust me, you'll want to see how this ends. Now let's begin. The glass of whiskey sat untouched on Jeremiah's desk, amber liquid catching the dim light of his penthouse office. He stared at it like it held answers. It didn't. Nothing did. Not anymore. Not since his parents' car went off that bridge when he was 9. Not since puberty hit him late and cruel, leaving him smaller in ways that mattered to most people. And definitely not since 12 years ago, when his last girlfriend, Rachel, had stood in a crowded bar with friends and classmates, drunk and unremorseful, showing everyone just how small his manhood was. Like that wasn't enough humiliation. She added that sleeping with him was charity work. She was cheating on someone with a much bigger length and girth, and the only reason she was still dating Jeremiah publicly was for the money and giftings he came with. Jeremiah felt little that day. He broke up with her and never went back to that school or neighborhood. And he never made a move on a girl ever again. He'd built an empire after that and made his own first million at 20, his first billion at 30. Money was easy. People were the problem, especially the ones his grandparents kept throwing at him. Jeremiah, sweetheart, you can't be alone forever. His grandmother's voice echoed in his memory from that morning's breakfast. She'd said it while pouring tea, as if loneliness were a cold he could cure with the right prescription. Watch me, he'd replied, not looking up from his phone. His grandfather had chuckled, that knowing sound that made Jeremiah's jaw tighten. You're 32, boy. Your grandmother wants great-grandchildren before she's too old to spoil them. Then tell Petra to have another kid. The conversation had ended there, but Jeremiah knew it wasn't over. It was never over. His grandparents had made it their personal mission to fix what Rachel had broken, even though they didn't know the details. They just knew he'd changed. They knew the boy who used to laugh easily now flinched at the words relationship or women like it was a diagnosis. The door opened without a knock. Only one person had that audacity. You're coming to my birthday party, Petra announced, sweeping in with the kind of confidence that came from never being told no. His cousin was 30, stunning, and extremely pregnant with her second child. She also had zero respect for his boundaries. No, it's not optional. Everything's optional when you're a billionaire. Petra rolled her eyes and dropped into the chair across from him, one hand resting on her belly. You know what your problem is. I'm sure you're about to tell me. You think money makes you invincible. It doesn't. It just makes you lonely, but with better furniture. Jeremiah leaned back, studying her. Did Grandma send you? Grandma doesn't send me anywhere. I come of my own free will to harass you because I love you. She smiled, sweet as poison. The party's Saturday, 7 p.m. Wear something that doesn't scream, I hate humanity. I'm busy. Doing what? Brooding? You can brood at my house. I'll even set aside a dark corner for you. He wanted to argue, but Petra had that look, the one that meant she'd already won and was just waiting for him to realize it. So he sighed and waved her away. Fine, 2 hours. Then I'm leaving. 3 hours and you have to socialize. 2.5. Final offer. Petra grinned and pushed herself up from the chair. Deal. And Jeremiah, try smiling. I hear it's good for the soul. My soul's fine. Petra rolled her eyes. Your soul's a crime scene, but we'll work on it. She left before he could respond, and Jeremiah returned his attention to the whiskey. Still untouched. Still useless. Saturday came too fast. Petra's house was chaos wrapped in fairy lights and expensive catering. Children screamed in the backyard. Adults laughed too loudly over wine. Jeremiah stood near the bar, nursing a scotch and counting down the minutes until his obligatory appearance ended. "You look like you're attending a funeral." The voice came from his left, warm, amused, entirely unbothered by his scowl. He turned and found himself looking at a woman he didn't recognize. She was curvy, black, wearing a deep green dress that somehow made her brown eyes brighter, confident. Not trying to impress anyone. Definitely not impressed by him. "Maybe I am," he said flatly. She laughed. Actually laughed. "Whose?" "Haven't decided yet." "Well, when you figure it out, let me know. I love a good eulogy." She extended her hand. "I'm Evie." He took her hand because refusing would have been rude, even for him. "Jeremiah." "Oh." There was a bit of amusement in her voice. "I've heard of you. Aren't you the man that's allergic to joy?" "That's an exaggeration." "Is it?" Evie tilted her head, studying him like he was a puzzle she found mildly interesting. "You're standing at a birthday party looking like someone stole your dog. If you had a dog. Which I'm guessing you don't because that would require caring about something." Jeremiah blinked. No one talked to him like this. People either wanted something from him or feared him enough to stay quiet. This woman did neither. "I don't like parties," he said finally. "So leave." "I promised Petra 2.5 hours. How much time do you have left?" He checked his watch. 1 hour and 43 minutes. Evie grinned. "You're actually counting. That's adorable." "It's practical. It's sad." She leaned against the bar, flagging down the bartender. "Tequila soda, extra lime, thanks." Then, to Jeremiah. "So what's your deal? Business issues? Secret villain origin story?" "All of the above." "Honest, I like that." She took her drink from the bartender and sipped it, eyes never leaving his. "Most rich guys lie better." "I'm not most rich guys." "You're definitely not." She paused, then added, "You're not as scary as you think you are, by the way." Something in his chest shifted. He didn't know if it was irritation or interest. Maybe both. "I don't try to be scary." "You absolutely do. It's the brooding thing. Very dark and stormy. I bet it works on most women. It works on everyone." "Not me." Evie smiled, and it was the kind of smile that made him forget, just for a second, that he didn't believe in smiles anymore. "I've seen scarier. My uncle's a pastor. Now that man can make you fear God and your life choices with one look." Jeremiah almost smiled. "You're very confident." "I'm very unbothered. There's a difference." "And you're friends with Petra?" "Good friends, actually. She's the most open-minded person I've come across. Also, she's the only person I know who can plan a party while actively growing a human. Respect?" "She's relentless. She cares about everyone. That's not relentless. That's love." The word landed heavily, and Jeremiah felt the familiar walls go up. Love. The thing people weaponized. The thing that left scars. Evie must have seen the shift because her expression softened. Not pity, just understanding. She finished her drink and set the glass down. "Well, Jeremiah, it's been fun making you uncomfortable. I'm going to go save Petra from her in-laws. Try to enjoy the rest of your mandatory socializing." She walked away, and Jeremiah watched her go, something gnawing at the edges of his carefully constructed indifference. For the first time in years, he was thinking about a woman, and he hated it. 3 days later, there was a problem. Jeremiah hadn't stopped thinking about her. 3 days since Petra's party, and Evie's voice still echoed in his head. Warm, teasing, completely unimpressed by everything he used to keep people at a distance. He'd tried to forget her, tried to bury himself in work, in spreadsheets and conference calls, and the familiar comfort of numbers that never lied or left or laughed at you behind your back. It didn't work. "You're distracted," his grandfather noted over breakfast that Wednesday. The old man sat across from him at the long dining table, reading the financial section like it was a novel. You haven't complained once about your eggs. Something's wrong. Jeremiah's grandmother looked up from her tea, eyes sharp despite her 73 years. He's been different since Saturday. Quieter. I'm always quiet. You're always grumpy. She corrected. Quiet is new. She set down her cup with the delicate precision of a woman who'd perfected the art of manipulation over decades. Speaking of which, we're having a guest for dinner on Friday. Jeremiah's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. No, it's already arranged. Then unarrange it. His grandfather folded his newspaper, and Jeremiah recognized that look. The negotiation was over before it began. It's just dinner, son. One evening. Surely you can manage basic civility for a few hours. I've managed it 47 times. The answer is still no. 48 is a much better number, his grandmother said brightly. More symmetrical. And this young woman comes highly recommended. They all come highly recommended. They're all the same. This one's different. That's what you said about the last one, and the one before that, and... Jeremiah. His grandmother's voice sharpened. You're 32 years old. You've built an empire. You have everything except someone to share it with. I don't want to share it. You're lying to yourself. His grandfather stood, straightening his jacket. Friday, 7 p.m. Wear something that doesn't make you look like you're attending a funeral. Jeremiah watched them leave, jaw tight, already planning his strategy. He'd done this enough times to have it down to a science. Show up. Be cold. Say something cutting within the first 10 minutes. Watch her face fall. End the evening before dessert. His grandparents would be disappointed, but they'd survive. They always did. The cook had outdone herself. Friday evening, the dining room smelled like rosemary and garlic. The table set with china his grandmother reserved for people she wanted to impress. Jeremiah loosened his tie and poured himself a whiskey, ignoring the pointed look his grandfather gave him. You're starting early, the old man noted. I'm preparing. For what? Dinner or war? With you two, they're the same thing. His grandmother swept in wearing pearls and satisfaction. She'll be here any minute. Try to smile, darling. You look like you're about to foreclose on someone. I am about to foreclose on someone. Chen Industries. They missed their payment window. Well, don't foreclose on our guest. I like this one. You like all of them. This one's special. Jeremiah drained half his whiskey and prepared his best dismissive expression. He'd perfected it over the years. Eyes cold, jaw set, the slight curl of his lip that said, I'm already bored and you haven't even spoken. It worked every time. Women saw that look and either tried too hard or gave up immediately. Either way, the evening ended quickly. The doorbell rang. His grandmother practically floated to the door, her voice bright with theatrical surprise. Oh, you're here! Right on time. Come in, come in. Let me take your coat. Jeremiah turned toward the entryway, whiskey glass raised, cutting remark loaded and ready to fire. Then Evie walked in. His brain short-circuited. The glass froze halfway to his lips. Every cruel word he'd prepared dissolved like sugar in water. She wore a burnt orange dress that somehow made her skin glow, her natural hair styled in soft curls that framed her face. She looked elegant and comfortable at once, like she belonged anywhere she chose to be. When her eyes found his across the room, surprise flickered across her features for just a second before transforming into pure, delighted mischief. Well, she said, smile spreading slowly and dangerously. This is interesting. His grandmother looked between them, confused. You two know each other? We met at Petra's party, Evie said, walking into the room as if she owned it. Jeremiah was very charming. Told me he hated parties and was counting down the minutes until he could leave. His grandfather laughed. That sounds like him. Jeremiah found his voice, though it came out rougher than intended. I didn't know you were coming. Clearly. Evie accepted a glass of wine from his grandmother, amusement dancing in her eyes. Your grandmother called me on Monday. Said she wanted me to meet her grandson. Didn't realize you were the grandson in question. You didn't ask? I thought it would be rude. Plus, it could have been any of your cousins. Why spoil the fun? She took a sip of wine, her gaze never leaving his. Besides, this is much more entertaining. His grandmother was practically vibrating with joy. Oh, this is wonderful. You've already met and you even chat casually. That makes everything so much easier. Makes what easier? Jeremiah asked, though he already knew the answer. Getting to know each other, of course. His grandmother gestured toward the dining room. Dinner's ready. Shall we sit? The meal should have been torture. Jeremiah had sat through enough of these dinners to know the routine. Awkward silences, forced conversation, his grandparents trying too hard while he actively sabotaged. But Evie didn't need rescuing. She commanded the table without effort, telling his grandmother about herself, discussing business structures with his grandfather, and making them laugh with stories about Petra's increasingly chaotic pregnancy cravings. And she kept glancing at Jeremiah, not nervously, not desperately, just curiously, like she was trying to figure out what he'd do next. He didn't know what to do. His entire defense system was built for strangers, for women who wanted something from him. Evie had already seen through him at the party. She'd already made him almost smile. And now she was here, in his grandparents' home, completely unbothered by the ambush, turning what should have been an interrogation into something that felt dangerously close to comfortable. Petra speaks very highly of you, his grandmother said to Evie. She said you helped her bounce back tremendously after she had her first baby. I am so happy she got her spark back. Petra did the work, Evie replied. I just gave her what to use and made sure to support her every step of the way. Dinner stretched longer than he'd planned. His grandparents asked questions. Evie answered with passion and intelligence. Jeremiah mostly listened, watching her navigate his family with the same easy confidence she'd shown at the party. She wasn't performing. She wasn't trying to win anyone over. She was just herself. It was terrifying. Eventually, his grandparents excused themselves. Too obviously, too conveniently, leaving Jeremiah and Evie alone at the table with half a bottle of wine between them. Evie leaned back in her chair, studying him. So, this is what your life is like. Ambushes and manipulation? Yes. They love you. They're interfering. Same thing. She refilled her wine glass. You're different tonight. I'm exactly the same. No, at the party you were defensive, guarded. Tonight you're just quiet. She tilted her head. What happened to the cutting remarks? The cold dismissal? I was expecting you to destroy everything within the first 10 minutes. Evie smiled. So why didn't you? Because it's you, he thought. Because I've been thinking about you for 3 days and hating myself for it. I don't know, he said instead. Liar. The word hung between them, not accusatory, just honest. Evie stood, and for a moment Jeremiah thought she was leaving. Instead, she walked around the table and leaned against it beside him, close enough that he could smell her perfume, something warm and subtle that made him want to lean closer. Your grandparents are sweet, she said quietly. You should be nicer to them. I'm plenty nice. You're tolerable. There's a difference. She paused. Jeremiah? Yeah? Stop running from things that scare you. I don't run. You absolutely do. You ran at the party. You plan to run tonight. I can see it in your eyes. You're still planning your escape route. She turned to face him fully. What are you so afraid of? The question cut deeper than it should have. He looked up at her, this woman who'd somehow become the exception to every rule he'd built, and for once, he told the truth. Getting hurt again? Who hurt you? Someone I trusted. Evie's expression softened, not with pity, but understanding. And you think everyone else will too. They have. I'm not everyone else, Jeremiah. She reached out, fingers brushing his jaw. And what if I do not want to run? Then she kissed him. It was soft at first, questioning, giving him space to pull away. He didn't. Instead, he stood, pulling her closer, one hand sliding into her hair while the other found her waist. The kiss deepened, turned hungry, desperate, like they were both drowning and each other was air. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Evie whispered against his lips, "Would you take me home?" "Yours or mine?" "Yours. I want to see where the brooding billionaire lives." He should have said no, should have put distance between them, should have protected what was left of his broken, low-esteem life. Instead, he grabbed his keys. When they reached his building, Jeremiah's house stretched out before them, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, minimalist furniture, everything expensive and cold and perfectly controlled. "It's very you," Evie said, walking to the windows. "Beautiful and lonely." "It's not lonely. It's empty." She turned to face him. "When was the last time you had someone here?" "I have people here all the time." "I mean someone who mattered." He couldn't answer that. He didn't want to. Evie crossed the room slowly, deliberately, until she stood inches away. "You're still scared." "I'm not." "You are, and that's okay." She reached up, fingers tracing his jaw. "But I'm here anyway, and maybe we could get rid of that fear for one night." He kissed her again, harder this time, no hesitation, no second guessing. She responded with equal intensity, hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. They stumbled toward his bedroom, shedding clothes, and when they finally tumbled into his bed, Jeremiah felt something crack open inside his chest, something he'd kept locked for years. A part of him told him to stop, to keep himself from the heartache that'll come the next day, but he had been celibate for almost 2 years now. No women, no orgasm, nothing. Until today, and no matter how much he tried to fight it, he wanted intimacy. He wanted her. Hands knew exactly where to touch. Their bodies knew the right rhythm they wanted, and when it was over, when they lay tangled in sheets that had never held anyone but him, Jeremiah stared at the ceiling and waited for the panic to arrive. It didn't. Instead, he fell asleep with Evie's head on his chest, her breathing slow and steady, and for the first time in a while, he felt safe. Morning light filtered through the windows, soft and golden. Jeremiah's eyes opened slowly, awareness returning in pieces. His bedroom. His bed. "Evie?" He turned his head. The space beside him was empty, sheets cool to the touch. His heart seized. Of course she'd left. That's what people did. They left after the first round, left before he could even ask if it was good. Then he heard it, humming, soft and melodic, coming from somewhere beyond his bedroom door. He sat up, pulse hammering. That didn't make sense. No one stayed. No one made themselves at home. No one. He pulled on his pants and walked barefoot through his penthouse, following the sound. It led him to the kitchen, and there was Evie. She wore his shirt, just his shirt, and nothing else. She looked up when he appeared in the doorway. "Morning. I hope you don't mind. I'm making coffee. You have an incredible machine and terrible coffee beans, by the way. You need to fix that." Jeremiah couldn't speak. His brain had short-circuited again. No one stayed the morning after. No one made coffee. In his kitchen. No one looked at him like this was normal, like they weren't about to run. "Jeremiah?" Evie's smile faltered slightly. "You okay?" He wasn't okay. His chest felt tight. His hands were shaking. Because this domestic, comfortable, terrifying scene was everything he'd convinced himself he didn't want. Everything he'd protected himself against. "You stayed," he managed finally. "Of course I stayed." Evie poured 2 cups of coffee, adding cream to one. "Why wouldn't I?" His silence was answer enough. Evie set down her coffee and took his face in both hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. I don't know what they did to you, but I'm not them, and I'm not running. He wanted to believe her. God, he wanted to believe her. But fear was louder than hope, and fear told him this was a trick, a setup, that Evie was too good to be real, that any moment now the truth would reveal itself, and he'd be destroyed all over again. Did Petra put you up to this? The words came out cold, defensive. Evie stepped back like he'd slapped her. What? This. Us. Did she and my grandparents plan this? Plan what? Everything. The dinner? You staying? You acting like... He gestured helplessly at the kitchen, at her wearing his shirt, at the coffee she'd made. Like this is normal. Evie's expression hardened. You think I slept with you because your cousin told me to? I don't know what to think. Then think about this. I stayed because I wanted to. I made coffee because I was thirsty. And I'm standing here in your shirt because mine is on your bedroom floor, and I didn't feel like getting dressed yet. Her voice shook slightly before it turned cold. But if you really believe I'm that kind of person, then maybe I should leave. She moved past him toward the bedroom. Jeremiah's hand shot out, catching her wrist. Wait. Why? She looked at him, hurt and anger warring in her eyes. So you can accuse me of something else? Question my motives? I don't need this, Jeremiah. I have a good life. I don't need a billionaire with trust issues ruining my morning. I'm sorry. Are you? Then she walked past him, heading toward his bedroom to collect her clothes. Evie emerged from the bedroom fully dressed, her dress from last night somehow still elegant despite the wrinkles. She'd pulled her hair back, and her face was carefully neutral, the kind of expression people wore when they were holding back tears. I'll call a car, she said quietly, not looking at him. Evie, wait. It's fine, Jeremiah, really. She finally met his eyes, and the hurt there made his chest ache. She headed for the door, and panic seized him. He'd done it again. Destroyed something good because fear was easier than faith. But before he could find words that might fix this, his phone buzzed on the counter. Petra asked, How did dinner go last night? Grandma said you actually smiled. This is huge. Tell me everything. The text sat there, glowing. Accusation. Jeremiah stared at it, and something cold slithered through his gut. Petra knew. Of course, Petra knew. She'd known about the dinner, known Evie would be there, known exactly what would happen. You need to see this, he said, voice flat. Evie paused at the door, hand on the handle. See what? He held up his phone, showing her Petra's text. She's asking about last night, like she was expecting something to happen. Evie's brow furrowed. So? She's your cousin. She knew we were having dinner. She's asking how it went, like she had a stake in the outcome. The pieces were assembling in his mind now, sharp-edged and damning. You're her friend. She talks to you constantly. And suddenly my grandparents, who've never invited any of her friends to dinner, decide you're the perfect candidate? Jeremiah, you said it yourself that you and Petra are always talking, that she's like a sister to you. His voice was rising now, defense mechanisms clicking into place like armor. How many conversations did you two have about me before that party? Before last night? Evie's expression shifted from hurt to disbelief. You think Petra orchestrated this? I think it's convenient. Too convenient. The party, the dinner. You staying? He gestured at the kitchen, at the domestic scene that had terrified him minutes ago. All of it. You're being paranoid. Am I? Or am I finally seeing clearly? The old wounds were opening now, Rachel's laughter echoing in his memory. Petra's been trying to set me up for years. She thinks I need fixing. And you work in healing. Evie went very still. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe this whole thing was planned. Maybe Petra told you something about my life. Maybe she even offered to pay you to pretend. The slap came fast and hard, cracking across his face with enough force to snap his head sideways. His cheek burned. The apartment went silent except for Evie's ragged breathing. "How dare you?" she said, voice shaking with fury. "How dare you reduce what happened between us to some kind of transaction?" "Evie?" "I stayed because I wanted to." Tears were streaming down her face now. "But clearly you'd rather believe I'm some kind of prostitute than accept that someone might actually care about you." She yanked open the door and was gone before he could respond, the slam echoing through his empty house like a gunshot. Jeremiah stood frozen, his cheek still stinging, chest heaving. The silence pressed in from all sides. He looked around at his expensive, empty apartment and felt the walls closing in. Then he grabbed his keys. Petra's house was chaotic even at 10 in the morning. Her toddler was screaming about something in the backyard. Her husband was attempting to make pancakes while simultaneously preventing the dog from eating the batter. Petra herself was on the couch, one hand on her pregnant belly, looking exhausted and radiant at once. She looked up when Jeremiah barged in without knocking, and her smile faded immediately. "What's wrong? Did you pay her?" The words came out harsh, accusatory. Petra blinked. "Did I pay who?" "Evie, did you and Grandma pay her to sleep with me? To stay? To make me think—" His voice cracked. "To make me think someone could actually want me?" For a moment, Petra just stared at him. Then her expression shifted from confusion to understanding to pure, incandescent rage. "Get out! Petra! Get out!" She struggled to her feet, and her husband appeared in the doorway, concerned. "You think I would pimp out my best friend? You think I'd pay someone to have sex with you? What is wrong with you? She's your friend. You've been scheming with Grandma for months. To introduce you to people, yes. To get you out of that depressing house and back into the world." Petra's voice was shaking. "Not to hire an escort, you absolute idiot." "But the dinner. You knew she'd be there." "I didn't know until Grandma told me on Thursday. She asked me if Evie was single and if she'd be a good match for you. I said yes because I thought maybe, you'd be decent enough to give her a chance." She jabbed a finger at his chest. "But clearly I was wrong. Clearly you're so damaged that you can't tell the difference between someone caring about you and someone running a con." Rachel was 12 years ago." Petra's eyes were blazing now. "And you've let whatever she did poison every single relationship since. You've turned yourself into this bitter, paranoid shell of who you used to be. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I understand that Evie is the first woman in years who saw past your money and your attitude and actually liked you for you. And I understand that you just accused her of being a whore because you're too scared to believe you deserve to be loved." The word hung in the air like smoke. Loved? Was that what this was? Had he just destroyed something that could have been love? "I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did. You meant every word, because it's easier to believe everyone's out to hurt you than to take a risk." Petra sank back onto the couch, exhausted. "Evie called me 20 minutes ago. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. Do you know what she said?" Jeremiah couldn't speak. "She said, 'I stayed because I liked his company. Why wasn't that enough?'" Petra looked up at him, and there were tears in her eyes now too. "So answer me, cousin. Why wasn't it enough?" "Because—" His voice broke and he couldn't complete his statement. "I need to fix this," he said. "You can't." Petra's voice was flat. "Evie needs space to think." "But—" "You accused her of sleeping with you for money, Jeremiah. You can't fix that with an apology and flowers." She wiped her eyes. "If you actually care about her, you'll give her time, and you'll figure out why you're so convinced you don't deserve to be happy. I don't know how." "Then learn. See a therapist. Talk to Grandpa. I don't care. But figure it out before you try to talk to her again, because right now you'll just hurt her more." He left without another word, climbing back into his car. The drive home was a blur. His shirt was still on the floor where Evie had dropped it. Her coffee cup sat abandoned on the counter. He remembered how she tasted when he'd kissed her, how she'd smiled against his lips, how she'd looked at him like he was worth knowing, and he'd accused her of being paid to care. His phone buzzed. For one desperate second, he thought it might be Petra. Instead, it was his grandfather. "Your grandmother is upset. Petra called in tears. What did you do?" He couldn't answer that. Couldn't explain how fear had turned him into someone capable of hurting the one person who'd tried to stay. Instead, he sat on his couch, the same couch where Evie had teased him about his empty apartment, and stared at her coffee cup until the light changed and afternoon crept in through windows that reflected nothing but his own hollow face. The worst part wasn't that she'd left. The worst part was that she'd been right. 2 weeks passed like wounds healing slowly. Painful, necessary, impossible to rush. Jeremiah didn't call Evie. He wanted to. God, he wanted to. Every morning he woke up and reached for his phone. Her number pulled up, apology drafted and redrafted 100 times. So instead of calling, he did something he'd never done before. He sat in a therapist's office and talked about Rachel. "She told everyone about my size at the party," he heard himself saying, staring at his hands. "Made it a joke. Said sleeping with me was charity work because I was so inadequate. And you believed her?" The doctor said. "Everyone laughed," Jeremiah responded. "That's not what I asked." The doctor countered. Jeremiah looked up. "Of course, I believed her. It was true." Was it? Or was she cruel? Or drunk? The question sat between them like a bomb no one wanted to defuse. But he finally answered. "It was true. Every woman after her had the same reaction every morning. Unsatisfied. Full of pretense, and they never texted back. Unless it was for money." The doctor nodded. And Evie? Her name was a knife between his ribs. "She was never like that, and I hurt her first. Before she could hurt me." And how did that work out? Jeremiah left the session feeling raw and exposed, like someone had peeled back his skin. His phone buzzed as he reached his car. "Petra, Evie asked about you today. I told her you were working on yourself. Don't make me a liar." His hands shook as he typed back. "How is she?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No response. Another week crawled by. Jeremiah went to therapy twice more. Had dinner with his grandparents and actually apologized for being impossible. Called his grandfather at midnight and asked how he'd known his grandmother was worth the risk. "I didn't," the old man said. "That's what risk means. You don't know. You just decide the person is worth finding out. What if I'm too broken? Then you fix what you can and hope they love the cracks." 3 weeks after the morning that had shattered everything, Jeremiah stood outside Petra's house with flowers and an apology he'd rehearsed 40 times. His cousin opened the door, looked at the roses, and raised an eyebrow. "Those better not be for me. They're for Evie. I need to talk to her. She doesn't want to see you." "I know, but I need to try." He met Petra's eyes. "I've been going to therapy, working on everything. I know I can't fix what I said, but I need her to know I'm trying." Petra studied him for a long moment, then sighed. "She's at her shop, the one on 5th Street. But Jeremiah, if you hurt her again, therapy won't save you from me." Understood. The drive across town felt like walking to his execution. Evie's shop was small, tucked between a bookstore and a cafe, with a hand-painted sign reading Roots and Remedies in an elegant script. Through the window, he could see shelves lined with jars and bottles, leaves hanging from the ceiling, everything earthy and warm, and so completely her that his chest ached. She was behind the counter, helping a customer. She wore a wrap dress in deep purple, her hair in braids now, and she looked exactly as beautiful as she had that morning in his kitchen. In the morning, he'd destroyed everything. The customer left. Evie looked up. saw him, and her entire body went rigid. He pushed open the door anyway. A bell chimed above his head. "We're about to close," she said, voice carefully neutral. "I know, I'll be quick." He held out the roses. "These are for you?" She didn't take them. "Flowers don't fix what you said." "I know that too." He set them on the counter between them. "I'm not here to fix it. I'm here to apologize. And to tell you you were right." "About what?" "Everything. I was paranoid. Damaged. So convinced everyone would hurt me that I hurt you first." The words came easier now, after 3 weeks of therapy and late-night conversations, and finally admitting the truth to himself. What Rachel did to me, it broke something, and I've been punishing myself and every woman since for what she did. Evie's expression softened slightly, but her arms stayed crossed. "So you accused me of being a prostitute." The word landed like a slap. He deserved it. "Yes, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Evie. You didn't deserve that. You didn't deserve any of it." She was quiet for a moment, studying him. Then she moved around the counter, and he thought maybe she was going to forgive him. Instead, she walked to the door and flipped the sign to closed. "You want to know why I stayed that morning?" She turned to face him. "It's because I saw you, Jeremiah. Not your money or your walls or your reputation. I saw someone who was scared and lonely and trying so hard to pretend he didn't need anyone. And I thought maybe I could be the person who showed you it was okay to need someone. You did. No, I tried. And you threw it in my face." Her voice cracked. "Do you know how much courage it took to stay? To make coffee in your kitchen like it wasn't a random one-night stand? I knew you were scared, but I thought if I could just show you I wasn't going anywhere. I know." "You don't." Tears were streaming down her face now. "You don't know what it's like to open yourself up to someone and have them accuse you of—" She couldn't finish the sentence. Jeremiah closed the distance between them, and she let him. He took her hands in his, and they were shaking. "You're right. I don't know, but I want to understand. I want to be better. I've been seeing a therapist." He squeezed her hands gently. "I know I can't take back what I said, but I need you to know it wasn't about you. It was never about you. It was about me being too broken to recognize something real." Evie pulled her hands away and wiped her eyes. "Are you asking for forgiveness?" "I'm asking for a chance to earn it. Why should I give you one?" It was a fair question. He'd rehearsed answers, logical reasons, persuasive arguments, all the things that worked in boardrooms. But standing here in her shop, only the truth felt right. "Because I like you," he said quietly. "And I hope, you felt something too. And if there's even a chance we could try again, I promise I'll spend every day proving I'm worth the risk." The silence stretched so long he thought she'd ask him to leave. Then she laughed, soft, disbelieving, tinged with tears. "You like me?" "Yes. After accusing me of being paid to sleep with you." "I know how it sounds. It sounds insane." But she was smiling now, just slightly. "You're insane." "Probably. Definitely." She shook her head. "Jeremiah, I can't just forget what happened. You really hurt me." "I know. And if we try this again and you pull that paranoid bullshit, I won't. You don't know that." "You're right. I don't." He took a breath. "But I'm trying, and I'll keep trying, because you're worth it." Evie was quiet for a long moment, studying his face. Then she crossed her arms and leaned against the counter. "Petra said you've been different, that you actually apologized to your grandparents." "I have been. Different, I mean. Trying to be." "Why?" "Because you made me realize I've been living half a life, hiding from anything that might hurt. And I'm tired of hiding." He moved closer, but didn't touch her. "I'm tired of being afraid. I'm tired of letting my past control me. I'm tired of pushing away the one person who saw through all my bullshit and stayed anyway. She hugged him. Then they finally sat down. There's something else. Something I never told you. About why I'm so insecure. Evie's expression shifted. You don't have to. I want to. The words felt like pulling teeth, but he forced them out. I hit puberty late, grew up being the smallest guy in every locker room. And then when I finally thought I'd found someone who didn't care, she made it the punchline to her story. His hands clenched at his sides. Rachel mocked me physically, mentally, and emotionally. She told everyone I had a small manhood. She made it a public joke. Understanding dawned in Evie's eyes. Oh, Jeremiah. I've carried that for years. Every date, every woman. Once we became intimate, they always had the same vibe as Rachel. He met her eyes. That's why I accused you. Because I couldn't understand why you'd stay unless someone was paying you to. Evie's expression crumbled. She closed the distance between them and took his face in her hands. Listen to me. What she did was cruel, inhumane, and completely untrue. But you don't have to let that define how you see yourself. I am trying to get over it now, and his heart was hammering. I was wondering, if you don't mind, since you're in the body enhancement field, do you have something to help me? She pulled back to look at him. I want your help, he said finally. If this would help boost my self-esteem, I am willing to give it a shot too. Seeing real changes plus the therapy, it might just help me get out of this damning phase. Are you sure about this? Evie asked after a few seconds of searching his eyes. Jeremiah looked at this woman who'd stayed when everyone else had run, who'd offered him coffee and kindness, and now had the chance to help him let go of the shame he'd carried for 12 years. Yes, Evie smiled, then nodded. Then we'll start slow. And us? He asked. We'll start slow there too. She took his hand. Actual dates. Getting to know each other. Think you can handle that? I can try. That's all I'm asking. She walked him to the door, and when he turned to leave, she pulled him back and kissed him. Soft, gentle, full of promise instead of passion. When they broke apart, both smiling slightly, Jeremiah felt something he hadn't felt in 12 years. Hope. Same time next week? Evie asked. You're taking me to dinner, somewhere nice, and you're going to tell me about your work without deflecting or making jokes about being dead inside. He laughed, actually laughed. Deal. He left her shop with empty hands but a full chest, and for the first time since that morning 3 weeks ago, the future didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a possibility, and he was finally brave enough to reach for it. 1 year later, Jeremiah stood naked in front of his bathroom mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. But it wasn't the physical changes that transformed him. It was everything else. He smiled more, laughed easier, slept through the night without nightmares of phantom rejections. The walls he'd spent 12 years building had come down brick by brick, replaced by something he'd forgotten existed. Peace and love. So much love it sometimes scared him. But the good kind of scared. The kind that made him want to be braver instead of smaller. You ready? Evie called from the bedroom. Your grandparents are going to kill us if we're late. He emerged to find her wrestling with an earring, wearing a deep blue dress that made his breath catch. A year together, and she still had that effect. Probably always would. Let me help. He moved behind her, his fingers gentle as he fastened the clasp. In the mirror, their eyes met, and he saw the same contentment reflected there that he felt in his chest. Thank you, she murmured. For the earring? For everything. She turned in his arms. For doing the work, for trusting me, for letting me in. You made it easy. Liar. But she was smiling. I made you talk about your feelings twice a week for 6 months. That's the opposite of easy. He kissed her forehead. Best 6 months of my life. Even better than the last 6? Especially better than the last 6. Because the first 6 months had been healing. Painful, necessary, transformative. The last 6 had been living, learning how to be together without fear, building something real instead of running from something broken. The family gathering was at Petra's house, because of course it was. His cousin had made it her mission to celebrate every milestone in his recovery, like it was a national holiday. Today was no exception. The backyard was decorated with lights and flowers, tables laden with food, and family and friends already arriving. His grandmother spotted them immediately. There you are. I was beginning to think you'd forgotten. We were 15 minutes early last time, and you still said that, Jeremiah pointed out, because I missed you. She pulled him into a hug that smelled like lavender and decades of unconditional love. Then she turned to Evie. And you, my dear, you look radiant. Thank you, Ma. How many times do I have to tell you? Call me Grandma. She linked arms with Evie and steered her toward the food tables, already chattering about recipes and grandchildren she hoped to spoil someday soon. His grandfather appeared at Jeremiah's elbow, 2 glasses of whiskey in hand. He offered one without a word. Thanks. You look happy. It wasn't a question, but Jeremiah answered anyway. I am. Good. The old man sipped his drink, watching Evie laugh at something Petra said. That one's special. Don't mess it up again. I won't. See that you don't. Your grandmother's already planning the wedding. Jeremiah choked on his whiskey. We haven't even talked about. Then you better start talking. Women like certainty. And that woman, he nodded toward Evie, has earned it. He wasn't wrong. Evie had stayed through the worst of his healing. Through the sessions where he'd cried, through the nights when old fears crept back, and he'd pushed her away before catching himself, through every stumbling step toward becoming someone capable of accepting love without suspicion. She'd stayed, and she'd never asked for anything except honesty. Maybe it was time to give her certainty. The party flowed around them, children playing, adults laughing, the kind of chaotic joy that came from families who actually liked each other. Jeremiah found himself in conversation after conversation, and for the first time in years, he didn't count the minutes until he could leave. He wanted to be here. He wanted to be part of this warmth. Petra cornered him by the dessert table, one hand on her barely there baby bump. Number 3, arriving in 6 months. You're doing that thing again. What thing? That thing where you look at Evie like she hung the moon. She grabbed a cookie. It's disgusting, but I love it. I owe you an apology. For what? Being an idiot a year ago? Already forgiven. She bit into the cookie. Besides, you've more than made up for it. Evie says you're her favorite success story. I'm her only patient with trust issues and $1 billion. Exactly. Very exclusive. Petra's expression softened. Seriously, though, I'm proud of you. You did the work. Not everyone does. I had motivation. You had love. There's a difference. She nudged him with her elbow. So when are you going to ask her? Ask her what? Don't play dumb. The ring's been burning a hole in your pocket for a month. I can tell. He'd forgotten how observant his cousin was. How did you... Grandma told me. She helped you pick it out, remember? Petra smiled. So? Tonight? Maybe. Definitely. Do it before dessert. I want to cry happy tears while eating cake. It's a pregnancy thing. Before he could respond, Evie appeared at his side, slipping her hand into his. What are you two plotting? Nothing, they said in unison, way too quickly. Evie looked between them suspiciously. You're both terrible liars. But she let it drop, leaning into Jeremiah's side. Your uncle is telling the same story about the fishing trip. Again. That's his favorite story. It's everyone's favorite story. He tells it at every gathering. She looked up at him. Want to escape? always. They slipped away from the party, walking toward the back of Petra's property, where a small garden overlooked the city. The sun was setting, painting everything gold and orange, and the noise from the party faded to a pleasant hum. "This year went fast," Evie said quietly. "It did." "But good, really good." She squeezed his hand. "You're different, you know. Not just the physical stuff. You're lighter. That's because of you. That's because of you doing the work. I just gave you tools. You gave me more than that." He stopped walking, turning to face her. "You gave me a reason to try, a reason to believe I could be someone worth loving. You were always worth loving, Jeremiah. You just couldn't see it. I can now." His heart was hammering. The ring box felt heavy in his pocket. "Evie, this year, these 12 months, have been the best of my life. And I know we said we'd take things slow. I know we agreed not to rush. But I need you to know something." She was watching him carefully now, a smile playing on her lips. "What do you need me to know?" "That you were right. That morning, in my kitchen, when you said you stayed because you liked me. You were right about everything, and I was an idiot." He took a breath. "But I'm not an idiot anymore, at least not about this." He pulled out the ring box. Evie's hand flew to her mouth. "I'm still working on myself, probably always will be. I'm still going to have bad days where old fears creep back. But I promise you, I promise, I will never doubt you again. Never question your motives. Never forget that you're the person who stayed when everyone else ran." He opened the box, revealing a simple gold band with a single emerald. "You stayed when everyone else ran. You loved me when I couldn't love myself. You didn't try to fix me. You helped me remember I was never broken. So I'm asking, will you stay forever?" Tears were streaming down Evie's face. "Are you seriously proposing right now?" "Yes." "At your cousin's house?" "Technically in her garden." "While your entire family is 50 feet away, probably watching through the windows." "Almost definitely watching through the windows, yes." She laughed through her tears. "You're ridiculous." "Is that a yes?" "It's a yes, 1,000 times yes." She pulled him down and kissed him, and he heard cheering from the house, loud, unsubtle, completely invasive. When they broke apart, both laughing, Evie held out her hand. "Put it on before your grandmother has a heart attack." He slid the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly, just like she fit perfectly in his life, in his future, in every dream he'd been too scared to have until she'd shown him it was okay to want more than survival. They walked back to the party hand in hand, and the celebration that erupted was immediate and overwhelming. His grandmother cried. Petra screamed. His grandfather shook his hand with a smile that said, "I told you so." The family swarmed them with hugs and congratulations and demands for wedding details they hadn't even discussed yet. Through it all, Jeremiah kept his eyes on Evie, laughing, glowing, absolutely radiant, and felt something settle deep in his chest. Not just happiness, something bigger. Something that felt like coming home after being lost for years. Later, when the party had wound down and they were driving back to his penthouse, their penthouse now since she'd moved in 3 months ago, Evie turned to him with a soft smile. "You know what the best part of tonight was?" "The proposal?" "Besides the proposal." She squeezed his hand. "Watching you with your family. Seeing you laugh and joke and be present. That's when I knew." "Knew what?" "That you're healed. Not perfect, not fixed, just whole." She brought his hand to her lips and kissed his knuckles. "The man I met a year ago couldn't have done that. He was too busy protecting himself to let anyone in. That man was an idiot. That man was hurt. There's a difference." She paused. "But this man, the one sitting next to me, he's brave. He faced his demons, did the work, and came out the other side ready to love without fear. I'm still scared sometimes. Good. That means you care. That means it matters. She looked at the ring on her finger, turning it to catch the streetlights. I'm scared too. Marriage is terrifying. But I'd rather be terrified with you than safe with anyone else. They pulled into the parking garage, and Jeremiah cut the engine. For a moment, they just sat there, hands linked, breathing in sync. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For staying. For seeing something in me worth fighting for. For not giving up when I gave you every reason to. He turned to face her fully. For loving me through the worst of myself until I could find the best. Evie leaned across the console and kissed him, soft, sweet, full of promise. They rode the elevator up to their floor, and when they stepped into the penthouse, the one that used to feel like a prison, but now felt like home, Jeremiah realized this was it. This was the life he'd been too scared to reach for, the love he'd convinced himself he didn't deserve, the future that had seemed impossible when he was locked behind the walls of his own making. Evie kicked off her heels and headed toward the bedroom. I'm going to change. Then we're opening that bottle of champagne your grandfather gave us and celebrating properly. Sounds perfect. Oh, and Jeremiah? She paused in the doorway, backlit by soft light, looking exactly like the answer to every question he'd been too afraid to ask. I love you. I love you too. He smiled at himself, realizing that sometimes the love you need finds you when you stop running from it. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, that love stays. The end. Thanks for sticking with Jeremiah and Evie's story. If you loved watching this broken billionaire learn to trust again, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We've got more emotional, romantic stories coming your way. Drop a comment below telling me which episode hit you the hardest. Was it the morning Evie stayed? The confrontation with Petra? The proposal? Let me know. And if you think someone needs to hear this story about healing and second chances, share it with them. Sometimes we all need a reminder that we're worthy of love, exactly as we are. See you in the next story.